Welcome to Crime Most French, a fortnightly podcast covering intriguing cases carried out on French soil. Researched and narrated by Cedric and rudely interrupted by me, Melanie. We're the true crime podcast All the Alliance. Crack open le vin and let the mayhem commence.
This is episode 62, the Florence Rey affair. In October 1994, when natural-born killers became a reality in Paris.
So it's another one of these tied back straight into a film or a TV program.
Yeah, that's the Oliver Stone film written by Tarantino that he disowned.
Yeah, that's incredibly, well, was lauded at the time for being incredibly violent, but when you go back and watch it through
It wasn't that bad.
the eyes of today, then it's almost positively mild.
Yes. On the 4th of October 1994, at 9:25 p.m., Florence Rey and Audrey Maupin climbed the 2-meter impound fence in Pantin in the Paris suburbs. So it's the police impound.
Okay.
They put on balaclavas and run toward the hut where security guards spend the night. They break the door and shout, "On the floor, face down, your guns, your cuffs." The two guards are not equipped to arrest people. They are cops, but they're not supposed to arrest people, so they have no handcuffs.
So basically, they're just desk jockeys.
If that, they are really night security guards, but they are technically cops. So they have guns. Mm-hmm. They don't have cuffs, but they have guns.
And then the night staff, so they're kind of like
they were probably watching
the B
TV.
Team.
So yeah. So Florence and Audrey had planned to use the handcuffs to attach the two guards to a radiator so that they couldn't move. But like they saw in movies, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But of course the cops don't have any. So what Audrey does is he sprays them with mace, because they have that with them, the cops, and then rips off telephone cables from the walls and then ties the guards with that.
Right. Not quite as secure as
Probably
cuffs.
not, no. But I suspect they're not going to fight back, given that just the next step they do is take their guns.
Yes.
So at that point, they just wait.
Yeah.
They just hope they won't get shot, and that's it. So
just ride it out and let it all happen.
Yeah, exactly. So they take two guns. They're Manurin 38 caliber revolvers. I don't know, people who know guns might know what that is. And then they flee the scene. All they wanted was the guns, obviously. A witness, a 38-year-old musician in the street, recounts that he saw 3 people run away from the impound. It intrigued him because he said the group was so hyper that he was wondering what they were doing. Mm-hmm. So he just watches things happen from a distance.
Yeah. So there was 3 of them?
Yes. He says to him it was 2 men and a woman.
Right.
So obviously Florence and Audrey and someone else, according to him.
Right.
The group opens a bag and takes out a handgun that they took from the cops.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The shortest of the 2 men grabs it and he runs down the street. The other 2 can't keep up and he quickly distances them. Mm-hmm. So he disappears and they're still running and they can't keep up with him.
Okay, that's kind of weird.
Near the Périphérique, which is the inner bypass in Paris, a taxi has stopped at a traffic light, waiting for it to turn green, and Florence rushes towards the car, which was a 405 Estate, if you remember with those cars, and she opens one of the rear doors and sits in the car. And Audrey is surprised because that wasn't the plan, but he has to follow, so he does the same thing. In the taxi, there was a passenger, Dr. Georges Monnier. The taxi driver, Amadou Diallo, I went to school with a guy called Amadou Diallo, protests. He tells them that he already has a passenger, so they can't just get in. Audrey answers it by taking a gun out and putting it at his head and tells him to drive to Nation, which is southeast of Paris.
Yeah.
The couple is planning to take the subway in Nation to go back home in Nanterre, which is north of Paris.
Really, they should have committed something that was closer to their metro line.
Yes, it feels a bit far for them to... Because Pantin's southwest, they want to take the subway southeast and go north. That's hours of travel in Paris.
Yeah.
No idea why they did that. It makes no sense.
No, that's crazy.
But that's what they did.
Surely there was a closer police station.
I don't know. But it wasn't a police station, it was an impound.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the reason for that. We'll see later
right,
why.
Okay. So is this where seized
Cars
vehicles
are stored or
right,
towed away cars and this kind of stuff. So they're not all cars owned by criminals or anything. It's just that that's if you park badly in the street, that's where they take your car.
So they were after a vehicle for some reason.
We don't know that yet. To the cops, it doesn't look like it because they never wanted a car. They never asked for keys. They never even looked at cars. As far as they can understand, they wanted the guns.
Right, okay. Still would have been easier way of getting guns, but, closer to home.
So the taxi driver obeys because guns.
Yes.
So he takes the Périphérique. And during the trip, Audrey demands that the driver and his passenger give him his ID papers so that he knows their address. Because if he knows their address, they're not going to make trouble. Because then he can go to their house and do something to them.
Okay. Kind of logical, but kind of crazy, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, I don't have much else to do. During the trip, I would say at 9:20 p.m., I can't remember, it was a day of the week.
Oh, it was past rush hour, but it's still going to be busy.
I've been in traffic jams at 3 a.m. on the Périphérique, so I would say it would probably take 45 minutes, something like that, to go from Pantin to Nation.
Yeah, I mean, it's M25 busy. I mean, it's really busy.
Yeah.
I don't know what its equivalent would be. Well, I mean, I know Houston, and the Houston loops are always busy. They've got an inner and an outer loop.
Well, the Périphérique is the inner one. It's the busiest one.
Yeah.
There's an outer one as well, which is the equivalent of the M25, the A86.
Yeah.
There's no equivalent of the Périphérique in London, as far as I know. There's no loop in.
No, inside. No,
London.
I don't think so. No, I mean, it took them that long to build the M25.
Yes, I know.
And by the time they built
it
wasn't fit for purpose.
It took them forever to build the A86 as well. It took like 30 years.
Yeah, what a joke.
So, but anyway.
Yeah.
So they don't have anything else to do. So he wants their ID papers. The passenger does as he's told because I'm not going to die for my ID. But Amadou complains that he can't drive fast and get out his papers.
You can have one or the other, you can't have both.
Yes, so Audrey gets angry and Florence does too, and she threatens to cut his ear off if he doesn't obey their orders.
Oh, and they've been watching way too much Tarantino.
Yes. At that point, the passenger tries to de-escalate the situation. He tells Florence and Audrey that he's a doctor, that everything will be okay, that they'll drop them off at the Nation. There's no problem with that. They don't need to get angry. He suggests that Amadou stops the car to get his ID out so that they don't crash. He even tells Florence and Audrey that they're young, that they don't look too nasty, that everybody can remain calm.
Mm-hmm.
To which Florence replied, no psychology, Dr. Freud. So Amadou continues to refuse giving them his ID, even though she threatens him again.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect it's in part because he might be an immigrant. The Amadou Diallo I knew at school came from Senegal.
Okay.
And as an immigrant, if he loses his paper, he's in deep trouble.
Right,
because to get them replaced is extremely difficult.
Mm.
So I suspect he didn't want to lose his papers because that's the only way he could live in the country.
Yeah.
So that's probably why.
They do take, I mean, Cedric has an ID. Everyone in France has an ID. And
compulsory for anybody over 16 years old.
Yes. And, you have to have it with you.
Yes.
Always. And as I'm not a national, I'm not a French national, because I would have to give up all my other two nationalities. I have to make sure that I travel around with a passport at all times. They take these things seriously. It's not something, oh, where's my passport? I'm going to travel. I have to have it all the time.
Yeah. At 9:35 p.m. near Nation, the taxi reaches a red light. And in front of them, there is a white Renault 19 with cops on patrol in it.
Ah, okay.
Amadou decides to create an accident with the cop car. So he goes through the red light and crashes into the cops.
Right.
The cops are a bit surprised. they're shaken.
Yes.
And they come out of their car thinking that it was a freak accident.
Yeah. Little did they know it was a wily taxi driver.
As soon as they're out, they hear Amadou shout at them, "They want to kill me, they want to kill me." So straight after that, Audrey opens fire on the cops, nearly point blank for one of them, who's shot dead on the spot. It was Thierry Ménard, who was 30. He was only about 1.5 meters away from the car because he was walking towards the car to see what was happening.
That would have ripped through him pretty fast then.
Well, yeah, it was essentially point blank.
Yeah.
So he's dead. Audrey shoots at another cop that was also coming out of their car. He also falls to the ground. He is hit in the back as he was trying to protect himself. At that point, Amadou Diallo takes the opportunity to run out of the taxi and try to find safety somewhere away from the shooting, and Audrey shoots him dead.
So after all that, not wanting to give up his ID, he's ended
dead.
Up dead, and he's got 2 other cops dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the best move.
No. It escalated fast. The third cop, Régis Descarreaux, 33, returns fire, and then Florence starts shooting as well. Seeing the general confusion, the doctor slips out of the car to the ground, just in time to see 2 passerbys receive stray bullets. Not fatal. They didn't die.
Well, that's something, I guess.
Yes. The last cop, still standing, shouts at the passerbys to just get down.
Yes, stop walking.
Exactly. Nearby, a man called Jackie Ben Simon, I'm guessing Jewish, and his cousin are hiding behind their car, a Renault Super 5. It would have been ancient at the time already. They can't believe what they're witnessing.
No, I mean, it does sound straight out of a movie.
Oh, yeah.
It is just crazy.
Yeah, it's not Houston. You don't get normal night fire and bullets in your windows and walls in the morning.
No.
It's Paris.
Yeah.
It's not the same place.
No.
So, yeah, they had no idea what was going on. They were just hiding. He later recounts that he could hear footsteps in the street at some point, and they were irregular. And he deduced that it was Audrey, and he was limping. He described that he could see him walk to the cop car, bend down, take one of the guns from the first dead cop. He still had it in his hand.
Great, so he's now collecting guns.
He's now collecting guns. And he put it in his belt, like in films.
Mm.
And he then limped to the other cop about 2 meters away and heard him take the gun out of the cop's holster and also put it in his belt. At that point, he's terrified because he knows that they are shooting at people and he now has a whole bunch of guns, all loaded.
Lots of ammo.
Yes. So he tries to hide, but he wants to see what's going on as well. At some point, he hears Audrey start walking away and he thinks, phew, saved. But then he hears him change direction and the noise comes closer.
Uh-oh. He
describes later how he could hear the loud, irregular breathing of Audrey getting louder. And at some point, Audrey turns round and spots the guy.
This is beginning to sound like a Godard film.
Audrey gets closer and takes Jackie hostage. They all get into his car.
Of course, well, they need a fresh vehicle, yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Audrey takes the wheel because Florence tells him that he can get them out of their troubles.
Yeah.
She tells him that he's the only one who can do that. So it won't be easy though, because many roads are blocked at that point because other cops have started to arrive.
Yeah. I would imagine
it's kind of loud in Paris.
I would imagine they would be getting a lot of phone calls about all this
from the neighbors
gunfire.
And everything. Yeah. So they decide to leave Paris towards Saint-Mandé, which is south of Paris. Mm-hmm. So they're going totally the wrong direction for Nanterre. A cop car alerted by radio tries to catch up with them. The cops get shot at, of course, and they eventually get distanced, so they obviously don't want to die.
Yeah, wise move.
At some point, Jackie, who's driving now the Super 5, they swapped, says that
why on earth did they take such an old clapped-out car?
Because that's probably the only person who was around, so it was easier to get the driver and the car.
True.
But because they needed to shoot at cops, they probably swapped at some point. He says that he found it very difficult to overtake other cars because, of course, there's a lot of traffic.
Mm.
And at some point, he overtook a car in front of them and just suddenly saw another car come face to face with them. So he just went back into his lane, clipped the other car and created an accident.
Great. At that point, I don't think you're following the highway code too carefully.
No, you probably do what the people with the gun tell you.
Oh, exactly.
They get to Port de Vincennes, which is possibly not the shortest way, but possibly the one that will have the least amount of traffic because you go via the Vincennes Woods. There's a motorbike cop who starts chasing them.
Yeah, so surely he could keep up, but I mean, that's dangerous.
Yes, he can keep up, but...
You've not got any protection at all.
Exactly. So Florence starts shooting at him, but her rifle jams. She takes one of Audrey's handguns, one of the cop handguns, and shoots again. Meanwhile, Audrey also shoots at the cop through the back window, which explodes.
Of course, it's totally, it's like Ronin.
Yes, they're totally in the film at that
Ronin now.
point. Yeah. So the cop is still gaining on them, and Florence takes her rifle back and shoots again. This time it works.
Okay.
And she hits the cop on the chin strap of his helmet. The cop loses control of his bike and crashes in a firework of sparks, according to witnesses, but he's only slightly injured. It was extremely lucky.
I'll tell you what, if it was a Michael Bay film, he would just spontaneously explode.
Yes, and probably take off and go into space, yeah. But he's very lucky not to be shot in the head, just in the chin.
Yeah, that chin strap saved him.
At 9:45 p.m., so we're 10 minutes later.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, no. Jackie sees a police roadblock about 400 meters ahead of them.
Right.
The cops are in shooting position, and Florence put her rifle to his back and orders him to drive through the roadblock.
Holy crap.
At about 100 meters from the cops, Jackie pulls as hard as he can on the handbrake.
What's he trying to do, a handbrake turn?
No, he's just trying to stop the car because
Right.
he's going to get shot by the cops or by the people in the car, but either way he's going to get shot.
He's the dead meat in the sandwich.
Exactly.
At the moment, yes.
So the car does two 180s and suddenly stops.
Two 180s, you mean a 360?
Two 360s, yeah.
Yeah.
Audrey hits his head on the windscreen. No seatbelt.
Oh,
That's his
well, there you
fault.
go. Always observe safety when you're breaking the
always put
law.
the seatbelt on. Florence is shuggled enough that she loses control of her rifle, and the bullet is fired and goes through the roof of the car.
Yep.
Nobody's shot.
And you can tell you've been living with a Scots person way too long when you say
Oh,
she's been
she's shuggled.
shuggled.
She's shaken.
Yes.
At that point, the car is surrounded by armed bastards, as they say in Ashes to Ashes.
Yep.
And one of them points his gun at Jackie, who panics and shouts, don't shoot, I'm a hostage.
Yes.
So at that point, the car is sprayed with bullet, Bonnie and Clyde style.
Wow. I mean, just now it's starting to feel very Butch and Sundance.
Yeah. At that point, yeah. That's the only way it's going to play.
Yeah. Everything's going to turn to sepia and we're just going to hear lots of gunfire.
Yeah. The cops take Jackie for an accomplice and they shoot him in the knee.
I hope that's all he gets, is it? Just a bullet in the knee?
But at the moment, yes.
Okay.
Other cops approach and more shooting takes place, obviously. One cop is shot from both one of the guns taken from the guards,
Right.
and from Florence's rifle.
Right.
One of the cops moves in Terminator style, so he walks and shoots.
Dun, 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 dun.
So just empties his clip on the car,
Okay.
aiming at Audrey, who falls on the dashboard.
Uh-oh.
He doesn't move anymore. So he obviously shot him.
Right.
Florence kisses Audrey's body because she thinks he's dead.
Yeah.
And
Now
she
it's
gives
turned
herself
back
up.
into natural born killers.
Yeah, but she gives herself up at that
Right.
point. Or not natural born killer, because I don't think the
Juliette
forehead
Lewis.
gives herself up. I
No.
can't remember how it ends, actually.
No.
Oh, they get away with it. I think they get away with
Do
it.
they? Oh, I don't know. I can't
Because
remember.
of the crazy journalist that they take hostage, which is totally crazy. I haven't seen it since 94, so I can't really remember very well.
We
but
watched it about...
did we?
Yeah, we watched it about, I don't know, a handful of years ago. But I've really...
I can't
we watched
remember
way
it.
too many films, so I can't remember.
Anyway, at 9:50, Audrey is badly injured, possibly dead, and he will eventually die the next day.
Right.
in hospital. He never came out of coma. In 30 minutes, 5 people, 3 of which were cops, were dead. 2 cops and 2 passerbys are injured, but their lives are not in danger. And the hostage was also shot by one of the cops.
I mean, it does just unfold like a Hollywood film.
Yes.
And you don't think of the impact of these families of these 5 people in films, but this is just horrible. This is just so unnecessary.
And at that point, nobody understands what's going on.
No. I mean, I'm still confused. Why?
Nobody knows what's happening.
Why 2 or stroke 3 people have travelled all the way across town to go get guns from a car impound? It just makes no sense at the moment.
No. So the police is totally puzzled, like us. The 2 young people, Florence and Audrey, aren't known to the police. So they have no idea who they are.
So they're not even kind of like skeevers.
No, there's just no clue. They have no clue who they are. They've never seen them before. They've never been in trouble with the law. They don't know who they are. They're just random people who had never done anything bad as far as they're concerned, who started killing people.
Just get more and more mysterious.
Yeah. The events very quickly become political. There's a whole bunch of people who are in favor of bringing back the death penalty and try to use it as a reason to do that. The justice minister at the time answers them in the assembly saying that it was in bad taste to use that to try to bring the death penalty back, and there would be no debate about it. He also refuses to harden the sentences for those who kill cops, because that was also what some MPs wanted. Saying that a crime is a crime, that there's no graduation in crime.
No, but a life is a
life.
life.
There's no nice crime, he tells them.
That a life is a life.
So a crime is a crime, and there's no reason to make one more than the other and more higher penalties than the other. It's just a crime is a crime. That has changed since, by the way. If you kill a cop now, you get way more prison than if you kill anyone else.
Right, okay. It's very kind of like typical of what happens when you have multiple shootings. I mean, yesterday you've got what happened in Hamburg. There was, somebody shooting at a synagogue. Or, no, it was Jehovah's Witness.
Oh, yeah.
Place. And that's people already saying the gun laws aren't strict enough in Germany. It's just it is on the MPs immediately jump on the back of tragedy.
Well, they have an agenda, so they'll use whatever they can.
It's kind of so scuzzy and nasty.
Yes.
Really, really. Now is not the time. Just help these families get over their loss and get the justice. Obviously in that instance they're not going to get any justice, but get the justice. Yeah, it is. It's just horrid and scuzzy. Politicians are horrid and scuzzy people, anyways.
There is a minister who's going to exploit it, the interior minister. The next year is going to have laws passed to increase police powers and surveillance, like they did after 9/11.
The Patriot Act, yes.
Didn't go as far as that. There's nothing as far as that in Europe, as far as I know, in any country in Europe. But he managed to harden the laws using it. He actually mentioned Florence and Audrey the next year to justify it. It was Charles Pasqua. Pretty nasty guy. The affair also makes a lot of noise in the media, of course.
Well, yes.
What confuses people and fuels the speculation is that nobody understands what happened.
Yeah.
Why did this happen? So, of course, everybody has a theory about it and an idea. So every newspaper, depending on what their agenda is going to explain it one way or another. So there's a lot of noise in the press. Also, what makes it worse is that a woman was involved. She wasn't a hostage. She was actually shooting people.
Yeah.
So
she didn't pick a very good. She didn't pick a very good weapon. Obviously, if it was jamming.
No.
But yes.
No.
There's a woman.
But
involved.
that's new as well. That normally doesn't happen. Normally, you imagine it's drug dealers from the suburbs, and
they're all just.
That was a woman. So
yeah.
So people are confused.
Who did black dudes? Just kind of like racial stereotypical.
Exactly.
It's what most people think.
And she's completely different. So
yes.
People can't explain it. Also, of course, the media mentioned Natural Born Killer, which was just out at the time.
Yeah.
To pretend that she was an influence on the couple, the same way. But I can't remember her name in the film. Anyway, the forehead Juliette Lewis.
Juliette Lewis, yeah.
Apparently, according to some newspaper, there was a poster of the film found in the squat they were living in Nanterre, which turned out to be something that one of the photojournalists brought.
Oh, and planted
there.
Oh my God. There's a program in the 90s on Channel 4 called Drop the Dead Donkey. And it was very much looking behind the scenes of kind of like rolling news and a news. I don't think it was rolling news, actually. It was a specific news program. And one of the reporters who ended up playing a vicar in The Vicar of Dibley, not Vicar of Dibley, the Ballycus Angel. So he was a priest, he wasn't a vicar. He was planting kind of like teddy bears on rubble of
that has happened
places.
In reality. They didn't invent it.
It is just, you're laughing, but you know that this kind of crap happens.
Yeah, that happened also not that long ago, actually. Some photojournalists photoshopping more smoke in shots of bombing.
Yeah.
And after that, some of the press agencies now don't allow journalists to change their photos at all, and they try to check that they haven't been modified.
Yeah, they haven't been photoshopped.
They have to come straight out of the camera.
Yeah, it's always much easier to. You don't need to carry a teddy bear around with you now,
exactly.
do you?
Yeah.
Scuzzy.
In the meantime, Florence is arrested, obviously. She's spending time in jail, and she refuses to talk. It takes them 10 hours to make her say her name.
Good Lord. Okay.
And the psychiatrists think that she's in a state of shock, so it's not like she's not talking because she doesn't want to, it's just that she can't talk.
She's entered
shock.
some kind of fugue state.
I don't know, I didn't get the details, but they think that she's just not going to talk just because she can't.
She's numb.
Yeah. So the cops start looking into what's been happening, and one of the most serious leads they have is links between the couple and far-left groups. Again, that's because of anarchist and far-left pamphlets they found in a squat and in Florence's bedroom at her parents'.
No,
so this time it's not journalists.
Yes. In two different places. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, you've got...
and they wouldn't have been to her parents' house. So yes. They actually found those things. So they think that there's a link there.
The thing is, you can't take anything as read in a squat. It's the whole nature of it. You don't even know who's put what where and when. So, but yes, in her bedroom at home, yes. Yeah.
So they think that the theft of the guns from the guards was their way to prepare or join a terrorist group. It was some kind of a initiation ritual. So
right.
That's what they think it was. Some weight is given to that idea when they discover a link between the couple and a guy called Abdel Hakim Dakar, who was probably the third man that ran out of the impound.
Ah, right, okay. The one that got away, the one that was faster than them.
Yeah. They discovered that he bought a pump-action rifle on the 5th of July 1994, so a few months earlier, at the Samaritan. Apparently you can buy guns in the Samaritan. I didn't know that.
I'm just horrified that you can buy a pump-action gun in France. That's...
Oh, I don't think you can now, but apparently in 94 you could buy that in a department store.
Good Lord.
Really surprised about that.
Well, you can get guns at Walmart, so...
They think that Descartes would have convinced Audrey, who he had met a few months earlier at a protest, to attack the impound to steal the guards' guns so that they could then attack banks. So that's what they think happened.
Yeah, but when you're starting to attack banks, it's not a political move, it's greed.
Exactly. So they think that the reason why they attacked the impound is that it's a police place, so there are guns, but there's no radio, and nobody expected to be attacked. So that's the best place to attack to get guns.
Yeah, but was that their closest impound, was it?
I have no idea where they are or how many there are in Paris. I suspect there's more than one, but I have no idea. I've never been to one. So
it's crazy.
Yeah. So that's what they think. They think that it was Descartes' idea, and the cops' idea also came from him because he thought they're cops, they would have cops.
Yeah.
Cops would attach onto the radiator.
And how wrong did he get it?
Yeah.
That was the first mistake.
On the 30th of September 1994, Florence Rey buys another pump-action rifle at the Samaritan as well. She uses a stolen passport. That's the difference between her and Decker. Decker uses his own ID.
silly.
She uses a stolen passport.
Yes.
They both, Florence and Audrey, train using the rifles in the basement of the squat they live in Nanterre.
Oh, they're great neighbours.
Yeah. The cops also discover that Audrey and Decker went on a recce at the impound on the 3rd of October, the day before. They find out that Florence withdrew 400 francs at an ATM on the 4th to buy the balaclavas and gloves at a motorbike accessory shop.
He was using francs. Were we not in...
In 94, yeah. The euro started in 2001.
Ah,
so it was still francs. So that's about 50 euros now.
Okay.
Well, no, it was 50 euros. It would have been 50 euros at the time.
Then, yes.
So it would probably be something like 60, 70, 80 euros now, I guess, something like that.
Yeah, probably closer to 80. The way the inflation's going.
On the same day, Audrey visits his mum's house to collect some tools, and he explains to his mum is to fix his chimney.
In the squat that he's illegally living in anyway.
He's going to do DIY and fix the place. In fact, what he came for was a saw so he could saw the handle of the rifles to make them shorter. Their plan was as follows. Florence and Audrey would take the RER, so regional train, to go to the impound. Then they'll meet with Decker. He would be the lookout while they break into the impound over the fence, which they did. And they would leave through the front door, because cops are tied up, and take the subway back to Nanterre. That was their plan. Seems a bit easy, but that was the plan. During the inquiry, the cops discovered that shortly after the fatal night, Decker convinced one of his friends, called Stéphane, and his girlfriend, to flee the country because they had provided accommodation to Florence and Audrey in the past. So they flee to Lisbon, Portugal. And the cops think that it was a way for him to divert attention from himself. Because then he could point at somebody who had fled the country after the night.
Yes.
So they think that his plan was to make them look guilty.
Right.
So that they wouldn't look at him.
He needed to try harder to get them to flee farther. Can you really flee 2 countries away? Is that fleeing? You know, not much of a flee.
No, that's true.
I mean, they could have gone down at least to North Africa at that point.
Yes, but to go to Portugal, you need a car. You don't even need a...
Well, you can get to North Africa by car. You just need to hop on the ferry.
Yeah, but you need a passport.
Ah, yes, that's true.
Right,
yes,
so go to
the
Portugal.
Schengen, yes, you can move.
At the time in 94, you, in theory, needed a passport. But in practice, you could move around Europe without being checked ever.
Yeah.
I've been to Germany and Belgium and stuff, even in the 80s at the time, and nobody ever checked my passport.
Okay.
Now you don't even need it.
No.
But at the time, you needed one in theory. But in practice, you could easily go to Lisbon. Nobody would check your passport. So that's why it's a lot easier. So it's probably as far as it could go in the EU at the time without taking the risk of being checked.
Yeah, it's true. The euro wasn't 2006, so...
So I suspect that's the reason why they chose Lisbon. Yeah. Decker is arrested anyway on the 18th of October, once the cop discovered that he bought one of the guns that were used by Florence and Audrey.
But he wasn't in the car, so he's been a bit lily-livered, to be honest with you.
Yes.
To try and save his own skin from... I mean, clearly they're the main focus of the case. It's not the first 2 guns that were stolen, it's what happened in the taxi and after the taxi.
Yes, and he wasn't part of that.
No.
He tries to save his skin, because that's pretty much all he does, by involving a whole bunch of people into a plot that he makes up. And he tries to make them the order givers in the whole thing. His plan nearly works, because Stéphane and his girlfriend, who he pointed at as their accomplices and they fled, were under an international arrest warrant for a while, for a few months.
Right.
But eventually they present themselves to the police because they are tired of being on the run. It's expensive to be on the run. So.
Yeah. So they came back home.
Yeah.
And then answered questions. And then lo and behold, it's just like, ugh.
But he had chosen them for a good reason. First, yes, they had provided accommodation to the killers, but also they had dealings with the police in the past.
Right.
Mainly, not for very important things, but for some small illegal activities to do with far left activities and
Right.
breaking in and this kind of stuff. So nothing like killing people.
No.
But they went on to the cops. So the cops went for it and
Yeah.
it nearly worked. He nearly managed to divert attention from him.
If this was in Scotland and you were just casually talking about it to somebody, you would describe him as being very sleek-it. He's, he's a sneaky.
They end up in jail for
Yeah.
5 months.
That's it, yeah.
And they're eventually released without charges.
So because of their political leanings and the fact
And
that
past actions, yeah.
then.
So his plan wasn't that bad.
No, it wasn't that bad. No, that's what I'm saying. He's definitely sleek-it. He's,
But they are
cunning.
freed because Florence testifies that they had nothing to do with it.
It would have worked if she'd died. Having another witness there to say.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If she had died,
they
his
probably
plan would
been
have worked.
in jail. Yeah.
Yeah. Later on, Deka is described by psychiatrists as mythomaniac.
I would say he's an extreme narcissist.
I don't know if he's a narcissist, but it's just everything he says is a lie. For a long time, he presents himself as an Algerian secret agent who was supposed to infiltrate Islamist groups in France and stuff. And he says it to lots of people he meets and to the cops, and it takes them ages to check that it's not true. And
and he's probably, a butcher or something?
I don't even know what he does. He probably doesn't even have a job. But he just makes things up all the time. None of what he says is true.
Right, so he's Walter Mitty then in that case.
Yeah. Florence and her lawyer try to present Florence as a poor victim in the whole thing. They say that she never intended to take part into a murder spree or anything like that. But
she Patty Hearst, is she?
Kind of. Well, they're not saying that she has Stockholm Syndrome, but they say that she didn't want Audrey to take risks and die on his own.
Yeah, is that why she was shooting at people?
Well, yeah. They also say that she couldn't impose her will against his. So she wanted to be useful for him, and she went along. That's how they present her before the trial. So the trial starts on the 17th of September 1998, 4 years later, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
During 2 weeks of public debates, she seems totally passive. She can barely express herself when she's asked questions. Even her lawyers complain about her behavior.
God.
Publicly in court, they complain that she's not responding the way she should.
Yeah.
During the trial, it's proven that through ballistics that she didn't fire any of the bullets that killed anyone.
Mm-hmm,
so she did fire her gun,
yes,
but she didn't kill anyone.
So she could be a murderer, but she's just a crap shot.
Yeah, she could have been a murderer. She tried to be a murderer.
Yes, but she just didn't have the skills.
She didn't kill anyone.
Yeah.
So she's not tried for murder. She's tried for attempted murder, which is a lot better.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The psychiatrists who see her describe her as a fragile teenager who grew up in a pathogenic family cocoon marked by her dad's mental illness. Apparently he had auditory and sensory hallucinations.
Holy
but
crap.
the family was hiding it and denying it. So she had to deal with that all her life.
So he had some kind of psychosis.
I don't know, he was nuts.
Wow.
But the family, because they pretended it didn't exist, never got him treatment or anything because they didn't want anybody to know about it.
Oh, I mean, that's just ridiculous. In this day and age, there should be no shame about, I know it was 30 years ago.
Yeah, but for some families are like that.
Yes, but still, no shame in any mental health. It's not anybody's fault.
They also describe her as being in a fusional relationship with Audrey and totally under his control.
Okay.
So that's what she said and her lawyer said.
All right.
But the psychiatrist confirmed that, she was totally under his control.
Yeah, okay. So he was this Svengali and she was just kind of like blindly following.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, she didn't blindly follow. She didn't have the choice. She just did what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Deka accepts that he bought one of the rifles that were used in the shooting. Hard to not accept it, given that he used his own ID card that he did.
Dumbass.
But he denies any involvement in the attack on Impound and any involvement in the shootings.
Except he was seen.
Well, yes, and also Florence testifies that he was the third man.
Yes.
But he replies to that it's a plot against him. So again, he starts making a whole bunch of allegations against random people who nobody knows about because now it's a plot. So Florence is part of a plot against him now. Doesn't work, obviously.
No.
again, he brings back that he's a secret agent for the Algerian government and all that. He brings that in court, and just nobody buys the bullshit.
No.
Because, of course, the psychiatrists have now talked to him and
Yes.
have said, yeah, don't believe what he says.
Yeah,
It's
he's
just,
a bullshitter.
he's a total liar. On the 30th of September 1998, after 5 hours of deliberation, the tribunal sentences Florence to 20 years in prison with no minimum safety. So in the US, it would be 0 to 20 with parole or something like that.
Yeah.
She's also sentenced to pay 2.35 million francs of damages to the victim families. Yeah, then
That's not going to happen.
she lives in
lives
the
in a
squad.
squad. Yeah.
They're not going to get any of that anyway. Deka is sentenced to 4 years in prison for his involvement. So during her stint in prison, she's described as a model prisoner. She keeps mostly to herself. She spends some time in isolation at the start because she tries to commit suicide several times.
That's not surprising.
During her stay in prison, she learns to use computers.
Uh-huh.
She spends a lot of time in the library. She takes part even in a literary prize jury. She's actually a juror in a literary prize,
right,
a real
okay.
one, not the one in prison, a real one.
Wow.
She enrolls at university in a history and geography degree, which she does well. But unfortunately, there's no outcome of that. It's just way to waste 4 years of your life. So she's convinced by one of the prison advisors to train as an accountant assistant. So she does a degree, which she completes. And she's freed on the 2nd of May 2009 after 15 years. So she did a good chunk, but not the whole thing. But it's not announced officially until the 25th of June.
Right.
So a month and a half later also. So nobody knows she's out at that point. She works on the film set because she has a new boyfriend. He's a director called Jacques Richard. And eventually she gives up that career and goes into editing, which is more in line with what she's been doing in the past. And that's her life now.
So she's turned her life around and
Yes, she hasn't been in
managed
trouble
to-
since. She has a job.
Yeah.
She does things.
now she's stopped living in everyone's shadows. She's actually managed
Yeah, she's
to.
probably not under anybody's control anymore, so
Yeah.
she can have her own life.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of debate when it's announced that she's out about the right for
Privacy.
not privacy, but this forgetfulness or forget or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Once you've done your
Your
sentence,
time, yes. You should be.
then people say, okay, people should forget about it. You've paid your
Yes.
your
Your
dues.
your debt to society.
Exactly. So it shouldn't follow you for the rest of your life, because she found it a bit hard to find a job because, of course, she's not only an ex-prisoner, but she's an ex-murderer.
Yeah.
That's why everybody's concerned.
Well, yeah,
It's very
she's
hard
got
to find
blood
a
in
job.
her hands. Yeah, she was in
Exactly.
the car.
So there's a lot of debate at the time about the fact that once you have purged your sentence, you should really be allowed to be forgotten and
Yeah.
start a new life.
Yeah.
I don't think that happens, but there's discussions at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's have a quick look at Descartes because it's interesting. In November 2013,
I'm taking it he hasn't done 2 degrees and turned his life round. I'm just predicting it.
there's a number of shootings taking place in Paris. There's a newspaper, Libération, and a TV station, BFM, who are attacked by a man with a pump-action rifle. To escape, he takes a motorist's hostage. At the time, they don't know who that is, because it's a guy who nobody even knows what's going on, because he attacked the newspapers and the police station but didn't shoot anyone there. He just came in with a gun, made some noise, and left.
Right.
And the cops are totally confused by, who is that guy?
This guy he does have some mental health issues, doesn't
Yeah, but so they mobilize a huge amount of cops
he?
to track him down, and he's eventually arrested for homicide attempt,
Right.
kidnapping, the driver,
Yes.
and illegal imprisonment, again the driver. He's found in a car in an underground car park after trying to commit suicide.
Right.
That's how he's found. Since his release from prison, because remember he was only sentenced to, was it 4 years? 4 years in prison. He moved to London. He got married, got 2 kids. There he got into trouble again because he left his wife, had a girlfriend who he tended to hit a bit.
He sounds like a prince.
He sounds like a prince. So he was sentenced to electronic tagging in the UK and 6 months curfew After those 6 months, he goes back to Paris, and we're in 2013. So on the 25th of November 2017, he's sentenced to 25 years in prison this time. He appeals. The second trial in September 2018 confirms the sentence. So
Good.
he's now in prison for 20 more years or so.
Crazy.
So that was him.
Right.
And that's the end of the story.
Yeah. And I think we have to learn that when you're going to robbery classes, in Robbery 101, always take a getaway driver. Public transport's never a good idea.